Welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be a palette ranking. I'm going to be ranking all the palettes that I've done first impressions on. I have 14 here, so there's quite a lot to go over. I have now done more looks with these palettes, really tried out the formula, and just rank them all. So if that sounds good to you, if you like ranking videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around, but without any further ado, let's just get started. All right, so of course I will have all the makeup that I'm wearing listed down below in the description box. I will also link all the videos that I did doing first impressions, looks, etc. with these palettes down below. And yeah, I have 14. However, I have 9 spots because some of these are grouped together. I didn't really find too much of a difference and it didn't make sense to make 1, 7, 1, 8, etc. So I am just gonna start with palette number 9. Let's go. Palette number 9 is gonna go to this little tiny Chanel quad. Now hear me out. I had some good palettes this round. And this one is coming in at the bottom, which hurts my heart. But the reality is, I just forgot about this palette. So when doing my ranking, let's rewind a little bit. When doing my ranking, there's a few things I take into consideration. Of course, the number one top thing that I take into consideration is the formula. The second is the color story. And the third is just how much I reach for the palette naturally wanting to. I keep all of these separate until I do this video and then they go back with my entire collection. And this one kind of got lost in the shuffle. And usually like I can remember what I have in that drawer and I did not remember this. I pulled this out and I was like, oh yeah, I have this Chanel quad. I remember the blush that I did with this, but I didn't remember this little quad. And it's not that it's not pretty. This is part of the Ambiance collection and I have Parure Cristal 328. So here's what it looks like. It's a nice, cute, neutral palette, nothing too special going on. However, it has like some really pretty bake shades. This white shade here is really pretty, but I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. It wasn't something that I really wanted to reach for. So that's why I'm putting it at number 9. The rest of these, I remembered. The rest of these I wanted to use. And this one, not so much. Of course, I'm going to keep it as just a collector. And it's not that I don't like to use it. Other ones beat this one out. I don't know what to say. There were just a lot of really good palettes. Let's go into number 8 and leave that one alone. Number 8 is going to go to the Glaminatrix Into the Night palette. So I recently did a video with all 3 Glaminatrix palettes that I have. So the Into the Night, the Nearly Natural, and the Sugar and Spice. There is a video with the Rich Romantic palette. However, I didn't have that palette yet, and that palette's gonna be in my next ranking. I haven't done enough looks with that palette yet to really know my full thoughts, but I did 3 looks with each palette. So it was 9 looks total. It was a long video. You can check it out. Again, it'll be down below. And I'm putting this one as number 8 because I just struggled the most with this one and this color story. It's just a lot deeper this half here than what I normally reach for. I liked the looks I came up with. I mean, they were okay. They were like medium because really I was trying to make sure I used all the shades. And if I was using this palette on my own, looks that I did on my own, I just didn't use that many shades. I think I did a look using these 4, and then these 4. And like specifically this one, I didn't like pairing all these together. I really would just pair like these 2 with a shimmer or, you know, just these 2 together, and kind of keep it simple. I'm more of like a simple eye look person. But I don't know. I don't think this is Glaminatrix's best palette. I was like on the fence when I bought this, and then I heard that Glaminatrix was no longer going to be doing this palette. They were only going to be releasing the singles. So I think FOMO got me a little bit and I ended up picking it up. And I should have just listened to my gut instinct on this one. It's not one that I just love all the way. So that's why I'm putting it at number 8. Number 7 hurts my heart a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, this is where like I realized that I have some good palettes this round, because number 7 is gonna go to these 2 Lethal Cosmetics palettes. I like these palettes a lot, so don't think just because it's number 7 that they're bad palettes. I do think, and I talked about this in my video, the Wildflower palette I struggle with more, kind of like the Into the Night. I had a hard time getting like cohesive looks. When I did it more my style, more simple, I'll just say, it was a little bit easier, you know, using 2 or 3 shadows max. But if you want to do like any intricate looks, I just think this has to be a companion palette. And it does go really well with the Nightflower palette. So this was the first palette Lethal came out with, and the Wildflower was kind of inspired by this Nightflower. So these 2 palettes together go very nicely. I think that they work beautifully together. I don't really like grabbing multiple palettes. I don't like having clutter on my desk. I don't like having things everywhere. I just want like one simple palette. So that's why it's a little bit lower. Formula's nice though. I really like Lethal's mattes. A lot of people talk about their shimmers and how special their shimmers are. Honestly, I think that there's better shimmers out there. These shimmers are quite flaky, textured, loose in the pan. I've had shadows from Lethal come broken before that were shimmers, so it's not my favorite shimmer formula, but the matte formula for an indie is one of my favorites. That's just my opinion on the formula. I did just have an easier time like cohesively with this one. It just leans a little bit darker, the Nightflower, of course. So I don't know, it's ranking lower because of the color story, but formula is solid. Honestly, go forward, all these formulas are just fantastic. The only thing is really just, I felt like I had to put these 2 together or do very, very simple looks with them. So that's why this one's ranking just a little bit lower. Now let's go into the number 6 spot. Number 6 might surprise some of you, because if you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know, like, I'm a neutral lover at heart. I've really been trying to step outside of my comfort zone this year, try more indie brands, try more color. I mean, I'm wearing a neutral look today. I'm wearing my number 1 palette. But number 6 is gonna go to Scooby Doo. And I know you can't get this palette anymore. You could only get it for a little while. I do think that there's some places that have stock still, like if you really want to and not pay like triple the price from a reseller. I'll list like a European brand that I think still has stock of this. You just are gonna have to pay like exorbitant shipping fees. But this is a colorful palette. I mean, there's no denying that. However, the looks I got with this I quite liked, and I didn't think that they were too out there. They weren't, you know, it wasn't a rainbow palette. It wasn't a super colorful palette. It still was a good colorful palette for someone who doesn't always wear color all the time. In my video, I did a look using the purples and the greens. I like that each row is for a character. People have mentioned this, and I do agree. Because of the spacing, I feel like it would make more sense for the color story to go this way. That's okay. I'm not going to dock points for that. But I also, you know, I use the blues here. I use the orange. I like that this just feels simple to me, that I can just stick to a row if I want and know that I have a look. I really liked the purple look. I really like the green look. I don't necessarily love that there's like these 2 browns here that kind of stick out from the turquoise, but I understand that that's the Scooby row and you kind of need to incorporate a brown for Scooby. He's a brown dog. So I get the reason, but I just like how this is all blue, all orange, all purple. The formula was really nice. It was my first time trying Glamlite. Honestly, I think all of these was my first time trying the formula, so I don't want to keep saying the same thing. Like, not only was it a first impression on the palette, it was a first impression on the brand. And I'm really happy with this. Like, it makes me want to pick up other palettes from Glamlite. I'm not going to pick up a palette just to pick up the palette. Like, I do want to enjoy the color story, which is why I haven't picked up any of the Halloween-esque palettes from them right now. but I would, you know, I am keeping an eye on them. And if a color story comes out that also calls to me, or an IP, I mean, I mainly bought this for the IP, I'm gonna be honest. I've expressed my love for Scooby Doo over and over and over again. So that was part of the reason why I purchased this to begin with, but the color story is also nice, and it's nice to have some more colors in my collection that I can go to, and I just feel like I don't have to think about this palette too much, which is why I just love it so much. It's an easy one to go to. And that brings us to number 5. Again, like hard decisions here. I'm not 100% sure on my ranking, and usually I feel pretty solid about it. Number 5, and this is where, you know, 2 palettes again, goes to the other 2 Glaminatrix palettes. I really liked the looks I came up with this, so this hurts my heart a little bit, but there's other palettes that I just naturally wanted to reach for more, which is why these are going a little bit lower. Now, out of the 3, I do like the Nearly Natural more than the Sugar and Spice. Are you surprised? I'm not. So, you know, here's what the Nearly Natural looks like. I always want to say neutral. This is a nice neutral palette with like a little bit something special. It doesn't just have some browns and a shimmer. You know, you have some greens, you have some like warm golds, you still have some pinky purples. This is a solid palette. It's been out for a few years now. This is not new whatsoever, but if you were questioning whether you needed this or not, because I had this on my wish list for quite a while, the only reason I picked it up was because I wanted the new Sugar and Spice, and I figured, why not while I'm at it? So that's why I picked up both, but the Nearly Neutral, the Nearly Natural is very, very nice. This one here, I like a lot. Very solid formula. It is a different formula than the Nearly Natural. I find the mattes a little bit more hard pressed, a little bit more pigmented. These are just so much more easier to work with if you're more of a beginner. The shadows have a little bit more blendability. They build better. They don't just like have a pop of pigment where you have to really press the shadow before blending it out. You can kind of just blend, but this also has more browns, and I feel like browns are more forgiving. The Glaminatrix formula, it is like a pressed pigment. You have to really place the shadow where you want and then blend out the edges. It's a different technique for me, not something I'm used to, something I love because I'm more used to mainstream brands and I'm still getting used to indie techniques a little bit. But once you kind of figure it out, it's a lot easier to use. So that's my only con with this. Nice color story. I like the purples here, the pops of purple. You have like some darker colors. This black is fantastic, and I am scared of black, but it's a fantastic black. So take that with what you will. I'm not someone, usually I avoid the black altogether. This black was really, really nice, really easy to work with. You have like this multi-chrome here, not like a very unique one. It shifts, it's like a black base that shifts from like very purple to green to gold to like a bronze. So nothing like super, super special, perfect for this palette. I actually really enjoy this mustard shade. It's very pretty, very textured. You have to be careful and kind of press and rub if you're going to use this shade. Nutmeg, obviously I love. I don't love that these 2 shades, I feel like this could have been replaced, and these shades are very similar to each other. Other than that though, nothing else to complain. I would pick this palette up again. I just wouldn't pick up the Into the Night, obviously, and the Nearly Natural, like no questions asked. If I lost that or it was gone, it would be one of the palettes I would immediately repurchase. And now that brings us to number 4. I also have 2 palettes for number 4. It is going to go to Cosmic Brushes. Again, same with the Glaminatrix. You should see a video on the Gothic palette. However, I'm including that in the next ranking. I haven't used it enough. But these 2 palettes, you know, Cosmic Brushes has gotten a lot of hype recently. And I have to say that the hype is real. Like, the hype is real. It just is. I really like this formula. Unlike the Glaminatrix, I find these mattes to be kind of an in-between of an indie and a mainstream, where yes, you need to be a little bit more careful, but you don't have to press and then blend. You can, it's a little bit more of a forgiving matte, so that's why I like it. You have a little bit more blendability, meaning like you can build up the shadow a little bit more than the Glaminatrix, which is ultimately why I'm ranking it higher. This is the Muse palette. And then I have the Delicious Delights. I'm not gonna pick up the Serenity just because even though it's a good formula, it's not my color story, and I don't wanna have palettes. Even though they're good formulas, I won't use it. I know myself, so I'm not gonna pick that one up, but I did pick up the Gothic, obviously, since that video is already up. But I like both of these. This palette is very unique to my collection. I do not have a lot of pastels, and this is pastels for, again, someone who's not used to too much color. These aren't too white-based where, you know, pastels can be hard to work with. So I've heard. I haven't worked with a lot of pastels, but I don't feel like these are so white-based. You really have to pack it on. It's like just a smidge. It's like 5% more than a pastel, and it makes it easy to work with. Again, just like the Scooby Doo palette, this palette is so cohesive. You can get a look just using this row, this row, this row, this row. I like that. It's easy for my brain to digest. I don't have to think too much on what shades should I use. Yes, if I have some extra time throughout the day to do my makeup, like I can do something a little bit, you know, go outside the lines, so to speak. But if I'm not, if I want some color and I kind of just want something quick, easy, fast, I can just stick to a row and know that I'll be solid, good to go. The Muse palette is also, like, it's not as cohesive, obviously, but this is an easier color story to work with. This shade Softly surprised me the most. It's a very unique shade. It's like a very soft seafoam mint green, and it looked just lovely, like on the lids. One of the looks I did was with this shade on video. Like, I did my look on camera with this shade is what I'm trying to say. And I really loved how it turned out. It was something I've never tried before, like a look that was very unique, and I loved it. So this one helped me really just step out of my comfort zone. This is also like a very affordable brand in comparison to Glaminatrix or Lethal Cosmetics. So I highly recommend them. Like, if you're just seeing everyone talking about them and they're just going viral, like, it's for good reason. They have a solid formula, and I'm excited to see like what else they come out with in the future because they have some really good color stories. The last thing I want to mention, and then we'll move on, is I was a little bit hesitant on the size of these Cosmic Brushes palettes, and I talked about that in my video on these. So I originally was not going to pick up the Muse because I just was worried that it was too big of a palette. I wasn't going to use it. I don't like big palettes really. Like, I really want the Bella Beauté Bar Smoky Glam palette, but it's so big, or at least it looks so big. So I originally passed on this, but the Delicious Delights, like, I really wanted. And I really wanted just something that was unique to my collection. And it came out during summer. It was very summer. I got this in the mail, and it is a lot smaller than I think pictures show. It, like, I mean, the Scooby Doo palette's very big, but it is much smaller than the Scooby Doo palette, just for size reference. I was surprised by how small this was. I was expecting it to be a lot bigger. So because it was a lot smaller, like, this is medium. This is not a small palette by any stretch of the imagination, but it is smaller than I was imagining that it was going to be, which is why I ended up picking up the Muse. Here's the Nearly Natural in comparison. So it's not as wide as the Nearly Natural. It's just a little bit taller, if that gives you any size comparison. So that's the Cosmic Brushes. And now we are in top 3. The number 3 palette spot, I also have 2 palettes for. It is what it is. I feel like it's just easier. But I can't believe I've never tried this brand before. And I've had it sitting unopened in my collection for a while. My Drawer of Shame, that's what I've heard that it's called. I didn't know that it had a name until recently, is shameful. It's shameful. But I finally got around to trying this brand after everyone talks about them. I mean, they're a huge affiliate brand, so I know that's why people talk about them. But that is Sigma. I have never tried Sigma until recently, so I did a collab with my friend Bridget on the Ambiance palette. We both did looks with this. Of course, it'll be linked down below. And then I did a look with the new Mod palette. I think I did this in my Chatty Get Ready With Me when I hit 1,000 subscribers. So I can't believe it took me this long to try these palettes when they're really, really good. I was not expecting them to be this good, I think. I think that I just kind of assumed that because all these influencers talk about them, they're all affiliated with them, that, you know, it's probably a little overhyped. But these were easy to use palettes. Simple, just standard palette that you can just rely on. No fuss. I can get a look out of these and not have to stress. And that's what I love. Like, sometimes I want to spend time on my makeup and like venture out, try something new. And sometimes I just want to pull a palette and know that whatever I do with it, it's going to work. And that's what these palettes do. So the Ambiance is definitely more bronzy summer tones. I lean more towards neutrals, cool tones. But I will say that this is the perfect amount of warmth for me. I really like this palette a lot more than I was expecting. I do like the new mod a little bit more. This is what this one looks like. I just like these pinky purpley tones a smidge more, like a hair more, but both of these are really, really nice. I think when I did my looks, I only used the brush that came with it. I didn't use any other brushes. So it's just simple, like probably easy to travel with. You don't have to take a brush with it. You can just have your brush already handy. It's a nice brush. Unlike some other palettes when the brushes just kind of suck, like the brush is good and the palette's good. Not a lot to think about, and I love that. That's why I put it in at number 3. And for the number 2 spot, out of all the indie brands, probably my favorite. They do have a special place in my heart before I tell you what they are, because they are from my hometown, and that is going to be the What's Up Beauty palettes. Again, just surprised. I really wanted, I've mentioned this before, but 2023, I really wanted to branch out of just mainstream Sephora brands, try more indies. And I guess I just had always held off because it felt like a risk. It felt like I was going to be spending money, and a lot of these indie palettes are on more the pricier side. Not always, but sometimes. So I didn't want to take the risk on something that wasn't going to work. I was going to feel like I was wasting my money. And I have to say, like 90% of the time, it's been worth my money and more. So if you're someone who's just like also like, why venture out into indie brands when like Sephora's tried and true, those brands have been tested, people love those, like they have the capital for good formulas. I would also encourage you to just maybe step out of your comfort zone, try some indies, because you will probably be surprised like I am. But I have the Geodes palette and the Desert Monsoon. They first came out with the Desert Monsoon, but I feel like the Geodes palette's the one that really gained some traction for them. I did a video comparing the 2 palettes, one look on each eye. My only con, because I always have to have a con, is that these palettes to me are very, very similar. I don't think you need both. And for me, like surprisingly, I thought that I was gonna like the Geodes more. This is what the Geodes look like, but I actually like the Desert Monsoon more. I think that it's a little bit more of an easier color story. So top is Desert Monsoon, bottom is Geodes. But you can see in that video, I tried to duplicate the look that I did on both eyes, and they're pretty much identical, which is why I say you don't need both palettes. There are some differences, you know, like you have the brighter green here where you have like the dark royal blue here. And this is a little bit more pinky. This is a little bit more darker, muted. But I think I like Desert Monsoon more, which is surprising. I like the shimmers more. This palette, I just feel like, again, like the Lethal Cosmetics Wildflower palette, needs a few more extra shades. It's not as complete as I would like it, and I think that's why I lean more towards Desert Monsoon. This feels like a complete palette. I get looks out of this very easily, even though I like technically like these shades better. There's not as many grounding shades for me to pair the beautiful shimmers with as much as the Desert Monsoon. So overall, if you also like just a one and done palette, Desert Monsoon is best, though I will have to say, like, the shimmers in the Geodes are much prettier, much brighter, more special. You just might have to have a companion palette with it, but the shimmers are beautiful. They're like the sheer iridescent with a translucent base, but they're just packed with glimmer and shimmer and everything sparkly. Those are my favorite kinds of shimmers. They go on really nicely, not a lot of fallout. The mattes are solid, and overall just like good formula. So that's why these come in at number 2. I'm surprised. I really liked reaching for these. I like the size of them. They're a nice, cute, tiny, but you have a lot of shades. So yeah, number 2 for this. And then that finally brings us to number 1, the one that I've been wearing. And the love that I have for this palette is unsurpassed. Like, I am thinking of special events that I can wear this palette to, because this palette just makes me feel sophisticated. I don't know how to explain it. It is pricey. It is the YSL Quad, the Mini Couture Clutch. I have the shade 100, which is Stora Dolls, I think. It doesn't say the name, it just says the number on the back. I like this palette a lot. And here's the thing, like, I have the Chanel Quad at the very last, but this one is number 1 for me. So here's what this looks like. Let's talk about the con. That's the con. The con is, like, this palette's like $65, and it did not stay in my component. I'm going to have to re-glue this down. That sucks for $65. I don't like that at all. However, there is something special about these shadows. I don't know what magic they put in here, but it is so beautiful and so blendable and so impactful. I mean, that's why it's number 1. I can't even just explain my love for this. What I did for this palette is I put this all over the lid, and all of these are like a satin kind of sheen finish. Then I put this on the outer corner. Again, this is like a satin, this glittery one over top, and then I used that light bright satin for my inner corner, and it just turned out so pretty. I used the dark brown as liner as well. Like, this is just a one and done palette. I like would get married in this look. I'm already married, but if I was going to get remarried, like, I would use this and use this for my eye look. That's how much I love this. Even though it doesn't stay in, and some people might not be able to justify the price point, I don't regret my purchase at all. Am I gonna be picking up other color stories from this? I'm not. This was the color story I liked. I don't want other color stories. If you like a different color story, I will say hopefully the formula is the same across the board. This formula is fantastic, but it is pricey. There's no other color story that I'm gravitating towards, but this is the perfect neutral leaning cool without being too gray palette, and I love it. I'm putting it at number 1. I don't regret it at all. I will cherish this palette. I believe I got this like as my gift to myself for reaching 1,000 subscribers, so that's why I was okay splurging a little bit more on a pricier palette for just a quad. Just unbelievable palette. If you can get a chance to see it at a department store, at Sephora, whatever, just try the formula out. You hopefully will be really impressed. This shade, you do need to use a glitter glue. I just want to point that out. If not, you'll have just a teeny tiny bit of fallout, teeny tiny bit. Better safe than sorry. I feel like if you're gonna wear this, you probably want your makeup to be perfect. You want it to be perfect all the time, but it's one of those things like I would wear this to a special event where I want it to be extra perfect. So use a glitter glue to be safe. But other than that, I have nothing bad to say about this palette, just the packaging not being great. And that is all 14 palettes that I have to talk about today. Let me know, of course, down below in the comments, do you agree with my opinions? Do you disagree? Which is totally fine. We all have different preferences when it comes to eyeshadows and how they perform. I would love to get your opinions on these indie brands though, and what you think of them. If there are other palettes from this brand that maybe these brands that maybe I should check out. I'm kind of, on the fence for Sigma. Like they did their Beauty and the Beast palette. I'm kind of interested in that, but I don't know if it's like top right now. There's just so many releases and I'm swimming in eyeshadows. So I don't know if I want to do that one, if I love it that much, but Lethal Cosmetics has a ton of palettes that I need to check out and see. You can also build your own palette. So is there something I'm missing from any of these brands that I should check out? Glamlite, etc. Let me know down below in the comments. But that's where I'm going to leave you all today. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, everyone.